No, Bigfoot are not alien. Bigfoot are not real. I had plans. I was gonna watch a movie, and then I was just gonna talk about it because I wanted to do something simple. After I got that Dr. Squatch video done, I wanted to take it easy on myself. But no, we're debunking Bigfoot. This is how my weekend has gone. It's supposed to be my day off, and I saw a movie. And it pissed me off so much that I have to do this, because my life is entirely based around spite. And I saw this movie, and it pissed me off so much that I have to talk about it now. And this is what we're doing. I took notes. I've got 2.5 pages of notes, and I'm going to go through these notes, and we are going to debunk this documentary called, and get ready for this, The Bigfoot Alien Connection Revealed. A rather unwieldy title, but that's what it's called, and I watched it. And I usually like watching those kind of documentaries because they're silly and I get a kick out of them, but this one actually managed to tick me off, so we're talking about it today. And, I was going to wear something a little more woodsy. I have that yellow flannel shirt that I've worn before, but fuck wearing flannel in this heat. I would die, so... This shirt has trees on it. It's as foresty as I'm gonna get today. So let's go through the list here. Let's go through these notes and debunk this terrible movie. So I think a good place to actually start would be the just kind of quality of the movie itself. It's not of terrible quality, but I feel like it was given to like a secondary editing house that had no affiliation with the filmmakers. And they were like, yeah, we'll edit this movie, whatever you're going to pay us. And when they got the footage, they're just like, oh dear, this is just nonsense. And they edit it in a way to make it look like these people were crazy because like the visuals don't always match up, or they're like kind of weirdly ironic or contradictory. Like there's a part where the narrator is saying it's like more and more people are coming out with their Bigfoot and UFO experiences, and the footage being shown is like 25 people at some con buying crappy looking Bigfoot merch. Like it's like 20 people at a dealer hall with shirts that look worse than this. I bought this at a brick and mortar store, and like the stuff they're selling looks a million times worse. It's like just all like Squatch merch. Or another one is where they're talking about telepathic communication. We'll get there. And they just show a guy is walking in circles around a pole. See, they start talking to some of the people that are the major players, and one of the guys they talk to is actually, if you watch enough of this stuff, you'll start to see a lot of the same faces over and over in most of these documentaries, because they usually go to the pool of like the same 10 or 12 people. And for this one, they pulled out Esteban Sarmiento, who is, I guess, an actual primatologist, and I remember seeing him a lot in Monster Quest. I used to watch Monster Quest a lot, and the funny thing about that show, and they actually get, like, I think the creator or one of the producers of Monster Quest is somebody they interview in this documentary, and the funny thing about that show, and I used to watch it a lot, is I think they did well over 50 episodes of Monster Quest, and I would say a solid 75 to 80% of those episodes were just variations of Bigfoot, because every forested region in this country has its own Bigfoot, and then there would be the occasional episode. It's like, well, we can't do Bigfoot all the time. Here's the Jersey Devil. And for all of the Bigfoot adjacent episodes, they would go to Esteban Sarmiento. And what really stood out to me about him in this is he looks rather unwell, which I guess is fair. I mean, he's getting older, but I felt bad at the end, because there's numerous people in this documentary who just do not look healthy, and it turns out 2 of them fucking died. So I felt bad. I was like, oh, there's a ton of notes that I have written here where I was just like, this person is a crazy person. And to learn that they're dead is unfortunate, rip, but in life, you were crazy. So, one of the crazy people they talk to relates a lot of like Bigfoot and UFO sightings and stories. It's like, oh, it's just like the fairies of old and other mythology. And it's, well, the thing about the fairies of old and other mythology is it was fiction. That's what it was. It was fiction. This is fiction. And the other guy they talked to, another crazy guy who ended up being dead, Twist, he says, in addition to it being fictional, he says, oh, it's a secret. It's a secret being kept by all of the governments, not just the government, all of the governments, plural. And there's a ton of contradiction throughout the entirety of this, where the same people will say one thing and then say the exact opposite just as earnestly. So, like, it's like, do you believe in both of these things? Like for example, this one guy they talked to, he says, it's being kept secret by all the governments, and he's like, and if you don't think that it can be kept secret, that is an egotistical and self-centered way to look at things. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Secrets can be kept. People can keep secrets, but usually, like, high-tier secrets are being kept by, like, less than 4 people. If you go above that threshold, your secret isn't going to last long. And, like, he's trying to claim that this type of a secret, keeping Bigfoot and aliens under wraps, has been done for 70 plus years by thousands of people, and that's just not possible. But his reasoning behind why it is kept secret is where he contradicts himself, because in one breath, at the beginning of the documentary, he says, if this stuff were, the reason why they keep it secret is because if this stuff were revealed, the world would descend into socioeconomic and religious chaos, because people just couldn't handle the fact that this stuff was real. So the world would descend into chaos, and that's why government has to keep it secret. But then towards the end of the documentary, he brings up the secrets again, and he says, well, the reason why the governments are keeping it secret is because, well, it would unite the planet. It would unite the planet, and he's just like, he's trying to do like a hero complex sort of thing. Like, you can't ridicule the Bigfoot and alien people. We're trying to unite the world. We're trying to get us all under one banner here of believing in nonsense. It's so silly. That's what he says. He's like, oh yeah, you know what? If people realized that we were really one species and one being and one planet, then we would unite. If we found out that creatures from another world existed, we would unite as one planet, and we would not devote our loyalty to just one specific government. And it's like, how can you believe both of those things? How could we unite under one banner and also descend into chaos? You don't unite in chaos. Like, that's just, like, that goes against the definition of words here. And then when it's, like, brought up, like, how can you believe in these conspiracies? Like, if they are being kept secret, usually the whole point of a secret is that nobody knows about it. So if all of these people know that there's a secret, we're kind of taxing the definition of secret, aren't we? And he goes, well, it's because you have all of these deathbed confessions of these high-ranking people who would have known about it. They say on their deathbed, they say, oh yeah, by the way, with my dying breath, I want the world to know that aliens and Bigfoot, it's all real. It's all real, and we've been keeping it from you. And I don't put, me personally, I don't put a lot of stock into deathbed confessions, because plenty of people on their deathbeds have claimed all sorts of shit. Like, yeah, you might have somebody on his deathbed who's like, oh, by the way, Bigfoot and aliens are real, but in their next breath, they could be like, and I'm DB Cooper. Like, people do that. That's not even just exclusively a thing people do in death. There's people who claim ridiculous nonsense while they're alive. Like, there is a large section of the population who takes great pleasure in calling the FBI to be like, hey, you know that, like, recent insert death that just happened? I did that. It was me. And they take that seriously because they have to. And then they're just like, I was just fucking with you. I didn't do that. I just wanted to see y'all scramble for a little bit. Have a pleasant day. There's a fella they talk to, and he's like, it's like, oh yeah, there's a high probability that aliens and Bigfoot are one and the same. And when he posits further, he says, what is it that he say? I have it in my notes here. He goes, oh, that's right, your thinking will evolve. Basically what he's saying is that if you search for Bigfoot for 10 years, a decade, if you dedicate a decade of your life to trying to find Bigfoot, and you don't find anything because Bigfoot's not real, he's basically telling you not to accept that the reason why you haven't found anything is because there's nothing to find. You just have to justify why you haven't found it. You have to come up with explanations as to why you haven't found it. Because the belief that it is just not real, you can't go with that. You have to come up with something, even if it sounds ridiculous. That's what you have to go with. And the idea that they are aliens, that's a good enough reason as to why you haven't found Bigfoot yet. Like, for example, Bigfoot can just dissolve. Bigfoot can just disappear into light. Bigfoot can travel between portals and vortexes as an interdimensional figure. Bigfoot can cloak himself. That's, one guy calls it the predator effect. And that's just a thing, that's just abilities that are innate to Bigfoot. There you go. Now you don't have to justify why you've wasted 10 years trying to find a monkey that doesn't exist. Instead, you can be like, well, I'm looking for a very elusive alien. You don't have to post any evidence for it, because there's none. There's no evidence, so you don't have to say anything. You could just posit whatever you want. You could just hypothesize whatever you'd like, and nobody can say 100% certainly that you are incorrect and that you are wrong. And as long as nobody can say with certainty that you're wrong, then you could say whatever you want. And who cares how fucking stupid you sound? And like, here's one thing that they post as evidence. They don't have much, so they are huge believers in correlation equaling causation. In 1973, in Pennsylvania, there were a large number of UFO sightings and Bigfoot sightings. Now, keep in mind, that is just a calendar year in one state, in the forested regions of that one state, where they just had an abundance of both types of sightings. And so, they claim that because that happened, they're one and the same. People had a lot of UFO sightings and they had a lot of Bigfoot sightings, therefore, ergo, Bigfoot is an alien. Even though that is just doesn't make sense, because they don't say that the same person is making these claims, that they're being made on the same day. Not even the same day. They're just saying there's a lot in this 1 year. There was a lot, and that doesn't mean anything. Before you can even like wrap your mind around how stupid one claim is, this documentary just moves on to another person for another ridiculous claim, and that's exactly what they do here. After they give you the Pennsylvania thing, they start talking about portals and vortexes, and how there's portals to other dimensions, and they're just here in the United States, and you could just go to them. And they talk to this lady who's like a caretaker for one of these gateways, and they show her, and she's just this old lady sitting in a lawn chair, and she's just got like a bunch of like alien shit just kind of strewn about behind her. And when I say alien shit, I don't mean just like, you know, like evidence of alien stuff, like debris or anything like that. No, I mean like she's got like alien like plushies and action figures and like X-Files merch just strewn about on the dirt beneath her and behind her. And she's just sitting there in her chair as the caretaker of all of this crap. And she claims that it's a portal to another dimension. And when they talk to her, they talk to her, and she's got some sound bites, let me tell you. She says that people come to visit all the time, which I would love to. And she says if you've seen a UFO or a UAP, as the unexplained aerial phenomenon, because UFO is too tacky and trite in this day and age. It's like, if you've seen a UFO, then your body reacts differently to the vortex. And the people whose bodies are reacting differently claim that they are filled with, quote, lots of love, which is not bad. And I have to agree, there's nothing wrong with having lots of love. I would love for more people to be filled with love. And then in a moment of coherence and clarity, she says, the cosmos is too dang gone big for there to not be life elsewhere. And that is a bit, it's like one of the only bits in this whole thing that I can actually agree with. Yes, I agree. I think there is life out there. It's not here, and not in the capacity that they are talking about, which is where I take issue. But when I said that she had that moment of clarity and coherence, I mean moment, because then she went on, delivered one of my favorite bits here. She said the Navy visited her vortex, the Navy, and they investigated. They investigated her vortex. She said, she's like, I'm not sure they were here, but I'm sure they were here. So here's the thing. I am not familiar with military hierarchy or policy, so I could be wrong about this. But would investigations of interdimensional vortexes, would that fall under the Navy's jurisdiction? I feel like that would be the National Guard. So anyway, the Navy visited, maybe, not really, but yeah, they did. And they investigated her vortex, and then she says they sent her a report that said that her vortex was, quote, intelligent non-human entities. So the Navy, let's pretend for a second that the Navy did show up to investigate her vortex. Why would they send their report to a civilian? Like, aren't there people that they report to who would probably have better use of their findings than her? I mean, I guess she's the highest authority at the vortex, so maybe I'm the silly one, but it's just so ridiculous. And that's when they leave her, and they go on to a new crazy person who says he used to be a tribal police officer in New Mexico, and he said he pulled over a van one night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and he said there were soldiers in there, and they had a cage in the back of the van, and he looks at the camera, he goes, I knew they were Spec Ops. He said, I could tell by looking at them, these are Spec Ops guys. And I was like, I mean, I've played Call of Duty. Usually the Spec Ops guys, I mean, they got, like, backwards fucking Yankees caps and, like, Oakleys. Is that how you were able to tell? Like, just to say Spec Ops on his, like, chest? Like, Henderson Spec Ops. That's just his name. His name is Henderson Spec Ops. It's common error. But so he's just like, yeah, they were definitely, and it's like, they told me to let them go, and I said, all right. So they're visiting this town in New Mexico, right, where they find this old tribal police officer. And they're like, we talked to a bunch of people in the town, and every single one of them has a story to tell about Bigfoot or aliens, but if you ask them to tell their story on camera, they say, no way. Except for one guy. They managed to talk to one guy, and he was willing to tell his story because it turns out he was already a Bigfoot and alien researcher. How interesting is that? The one guy willing to talk to you is the one guy who already believes what you believe. And even better, he's like the cousin of the tribal police officer from earlier. The collusion is real. And so they spend some time with the former police officer and his son, and they're determined to make contact with a Bigfoot, which essentially means they're just wandering around in the woods of New Mexico with shotguns. That's what they're doing. They even like make claim to it. It's like, as you can see, they're well armed. And they talk to the police officer, and he's just like, yeah. He goes, you know, he's like, I talked with a medicine man once in a tribe, and he told me that Bigfoot was an interdimensional being. He's from a parallel universe. And funny thing about that. So I've known a fair few medicine men in my day, and they're usually considered holy men, very spiritual men. I don't think they would recommend you put two between the eyes of a Bigfoot, my dude. That's usually not their MO. and how you should interact with creatures of the earth. As he's looking out, like, they talk to this guy and his son, who's like my age, and they talk to the two of them like they're experts. Like, these guys are the Bigfoot experts. And he says, like, he actually honestly says, he goes, I've never seen one. He's like, I've never seen one, but I've smelled it. He said, Bigfoot smells like billy goats. Now, I have never been to New Mexico, and have no close prospects of ever traveling there. But, and as such, I am not familiar with the flora and fauna. But if I were in the woods of New Mexico, and I smelled a billy goat, I would sooner believe that there was a billy goat nearby, as opposed to a Bigfoot. Like, I feel like it's more reasonable. Like, even if billy goats aren't common to New Mexico, I would still more likely believe that a billy goat had escaped to that area, as opposed to, well, Bigfoot smells like billy goats, so it must be Bigfoot. And another thing they claim, a reason why they've never seen one, but they've smelled it, but they've never seen it, is because Bigfoots are jokesters. They're tricksters. They have senses of humor, and they know when they're being photographed, and so they always know how to avoid cameras. How convenient. How convenient. The thing that you're trying to get evidence of is aware that you're trying to get evidence of it and knows exactly how to avoid all tools of evidence gathering. How funny. Like, again, they just make ridiculous claims. Like, they say, you know something, we see a lot of military vehicles pass over this area, you know, black helicopters and all that. Something must be going on. Here's a fun little anecdote. I live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, okay? Any of you familiar with this city? It is, you know, it's a tourist destination. Kids come here for spring break. We got a couple decent beaches here, and the weather is, I mean, I think it's abominable, but people claim that the weather is nice. And I guess if you're coming from the north or the Midwest and you just want to see water, salty water, this is a great place. Man, gotta love it. Military vehicles fly over here all the time. And it's because it's a go-between. Like, you have to travel through here to get to, like, military bases that are on, like, one's to the north and one's to the south. So they fly, we have an airport here. So you have to fly nearby. So, yes, military AC-130s, fucking those, I don't know, those bombers, they fly around here all the time. They're really loud, and I hate them. But they fly over. And as for black helicopters, I mean, fuck, helicopters can be black. That's not uncommon. Like, all black vehicles are not an immediate sign of suspicious activity. Fucking, my Jeep is all black. I'd be more concerned if a helicopter was, like, neon pink. Or shit, neon green. Let's go with the alien theme here. I'd be more concerned about that. And then they start going into Roswell. Oh, good. We're gonna do Roswell. Roswell's been debunked like 6 ways from fucking Sunday, but it's a thing that everybody knows. Like, whenever you talk about aliens and spacecraft, Roswell always comes up. Every single alien UFO documentary worth its salt has discussed Roswell, and when it's been done 1,000 fucking times, you gotta out crazy everybody else. You gotta do something different, and they do. Like, they talk about, like, one of the guys who was at the scene, and they're like, you know, if anybody would know about a cover-up, it would be that guy, the Major Jesse Marcel. He was in the military. Anybody's gonna know about a cover-up, it's gonna be him. Here's the thing, though. Major is not the highest rank, so if they were covering his shit up, it's not necessarily he would be one of the best ones to know. I mean, Colonel Mustard outranks Jesse Marcel, so that doesn't mean anything to me. But the crazy thing they posit is that Roswell wasn't even the crash site. That's news to me. Every single anything I've ever seen on Roswell always posits that it is the crash site, because that's where they found bodies. That's where they found the alien bodies. Not true. Says this documentary, Roswell was just like a skid mark. It was like a ricochet. So, like, the craft landed and it went, and then it sped off, and it crashed in a completely different New Mexico town miles away. And the bodies were actually found there. So, not Bigfoots, because the visuals, again, they use are like artists' renditions of like the little gray alien that we're all used to seeing. Not they don't use Bigfoot. And I'm tired of this idea, because they use this a lot, that being in the military automatically equates to credibility. I don't believe that at all. Like, just because you're in the military, it does not give you some weird level of credibility. I don't agree with that. Like, I've known plenty of people from my middle school and high school days who grew up and went into the military, and if they were to tell me anything, I wouldn't automatically believe it because they have military training. Like, yeah, you know, that guy who was a dipshit in grade school, was a dipshit in high school, was a dipshit as an adult, and now that he's been in the military, guess what? He's still a dipshit, at least based on his Facebook posts. If he were to come up to me and be like, hey man, aliens are real and they're keeping it from you, I'd be like, well, you're a dipshit. I don't believe you. Then they talk to like this guy who starts off pretty good. Another one where he starts off with like an interesting point where he's like, you know what, we're sending little ships to Alpha Centauri. Like, you know, that's something that our human society is sort of capable of doing. It's something that we want to do. It's something that we can kind of do. So even if you want to say that other civilizations, other intelligent life out there, maybe you don't want to say that they're well beyond us, but if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're on the same level as us, then maybe they're doing something like that. And I was like, you know what, I could see that. That's fair. I think that's a fair assessment, that, you know, somewhere billions of light years away, whatever intelligences are out there are capable of sending little ships out to discover new planets of their own. I could buy that. But then he keeps talking, and he says, yeah, and they've got those self-replicating robots. You know, those self-replicating robots, they're just sending them out to other planets, and they're trying to harvest all their resources. So, yeah, we're not too far off from that happening. And I was flabbergasted listening to that. I was like, is this guy really describing, like, Alien Command and Conquer? Like, it's like, yeah, you know, those aliens, they're out there searching for all that Tiberium. Crazy, right? It's just like, if they've seen it in a game or a movie or read it in a book, then the aliens are just capable of having, they can just do it. So, like, they talk about the Phoenix Lights, another event that has been discussed ad nauseum, and they talk about the Phoenix Lights, but they don't just say, oh, those were lights in the sky, maybe it was an alien craft. No. They're like, it was one big craft, and it had the ability to make itself completely transparent because the aliens just have that level of cloaking technology. Like I said earlier, there's a guy who literally calls it the Predator effect. He's like, he saw it in a movie, therefore alien Bigfoots can just do it. So then the movie started really ticking me off. It had been mostly harmless to this point. They're just saying ridiculous nonsense. But then they started saying stuff that really irritated me. I mentioned it briefly before with the guy and the medicine man, but this movie loves to use native culture as evidence for its belief about aliens and Bigfoot, specifically Bigfoot. They say from like different cave paintings and stories that have been passed down from First Nation peoples, and the fact that they spoke to, I believe, that tribal police officer. I forget which tribe he is, either Apache or Comanche. I think it's Apache. And there's another woman they speak to who is a Lakota, and they basically say that because they have that, it's essentially evidence that the native people, the First Nation people, believed in Sasquatch and skinwalkers and Wendigos as real-life creatures. Now, let me give you a little story. Let me do a little story for you. Let me actually live up to my fucking heritage for once and tell you a story. So, like I said, I've spoken to numerous medicine men and chiefs and den mothers in my time because I am of native origin, and I will, for full disclosure, admit my limited scope to being just from the tribes of the Northeast. My tribe lineage is called Micmac, and hardy har har, patty whack, give a dog a bone. Never heard that before. Ace joke. They are from the northern part of the United States, your northern Maine, southeast Canada. That's where they're from. So maybe the stories that are passed down through those tribes are just different, but here's what I can tell you from the stories I was told. They were usually based on the story you were being told. If there was an antagonist in it, it was dependent upon who was being told the story and what purpose the story was being told for. Let me give you before I really get into it, let me give you a white equivalent, okay? Let's say you're a child of the English countryside, and your parents tell you the story of the boy who cried wolf. Whether or not that's the actual origins, I'm not sure, it's just an example. The story of the boy who cried wolf is to prevent pathological lying. That's what it's there to decry. And if you are a child being told that story, it resonates with you because you understand, coming from that background, the threat a wolf poses. You understand why that story, why it sticks with you, because the idea of like calling for a wolf and then it fucking eating you, you get it. You understand the threat a wolf presents. So that's why they would tell that story. In native parlance, they have a different relationship with the wolf. Okay, a wolf is seen as a dangerous predator, sure, but there's more of a respect between the native people and animals, even wolves, because in having their own names, a lot of native people would use wolf as part of their name, not because it sounds cool, but because there's spiritual aspects of the wolf that they identify with, and they take that as part of their name. My native name, for example, is Little Coyote, and that was given to me because I am short and always have been, and was, even by the holiest and most spiritual men I've ever met, considered to be an obnoxious little trickster little turd. So that's why I was given that name. Not fox, not hyena, coyote. That's what I was given. So, others take wolf. So there's a respect between the people and the animals. And when different people are telling a story, if an animal is in it, it's usually, if you want to tell a story in a positive way to teach a lesson, you would use animals, or, you know, a story of a child gaining something from Mother Earth. Again, I'm trying to pull this stuff off my dome here. On the opposite token, if you need to be scared into flying straight because, you know, a positive story is just not working and you need something a little harsher, they would usually come up with some sort of monster, something that would scare them, because they didn't have, fear didn't work the same way with like predators that it would towards like a monster. So if you needed somebody to be scared straight, you would use a monster, not a wolf. So the point that I'm getting at is the idea of using Native American fiction as as evidence for your silly Bigfoot beliefs. I don't like that. Now, again, to be fair, before anybody, I don't think anybody would. I am a mutt of multiple nationalities, ethnicities, what have you. Native is just one of them. I do not like an aspect of my lineage being used in this very, at best it is tacky, okay, and at worst it's cultural appropriation. And I don't care if you found a Lakota or an Apache who's just like believes in this nonsense too. Good on them. But I do not like the concepts of my people's heritage being used in this way. So that's why this pissed me off. Anywho, we move on to the more fun nonsense. So after that, we go back to another well-trodden piece of Bigfoot footage, the Patterson Gimlin film. Another thing that has been debunked fucking 1,000 times at this point. But we go back to it, and they say, it's like, you know something, they say this without irony, like, a lot of sightings really increased after this film came out. Yeah? Yeah, you think so? And then, again, we get back into the contradictions where they're like, it's interesting. A lot of people report seeing Bigfoot, but a lot of their descriptions vary. So, not only do they say that this creature is rare enough to practically never be filmed, but it's also one of the most genetically diverse creatures out there, which explains why there's so many people who have different descriptions of fur color, skin tone, shoulder width, eye shape, eye color, nose width, facial structure, bone density, footprint size. So they're as diverse as us, but as rare as the white fucking rhino. So they talk to this one guy who's trying to justify the fact that Bigfoot is not actually an ape, it's an alien. And he says, he goes, well, you think about it, Bigfoot has the ability to just disappear into light, and real monkeys don't do that. Real monkeys don't vanish. And he's like, you know what, you're right, my guy. Real monkeys do not vanish into thin air. And the reason for that, it's actually you played your hand a little bit. It's in what you said. The fact that they're real is the reason why real monkeys don't vanish. Because real monkeys are real, and Bigfoot is not. They talk to a guy who's managed to record some, like, hootin' and hollering out in the woods of California. And he's like, man, if I can get this corroborated, it'll be the biggest Bigfoot discovery ever made. And I couldn't help but laugh at that because he hasn't gotten that to happen yet. It's interesting. Once they try and get any of this stuff peer-reviewed, it never pans out. Almost is, but you know what? Maybe they're just in on it. That's got to be it. They're just in on it. They keep just bouncing around from crazy thing to crazy thing. They go back to the alternate dimension theory, and they say that these vortexes, since they exist all over the United States, there's one in Montana, and what they are is actually they're thin. They're a thinning in the layers between our dimension and the other one. And that's what these vortexes are. It's where the layers are at their thinnest, and that's why Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings are really common in these areas. Not just because they're near woods and people see shit. So they go to this one in Montana. Oh boy, this Montana vortex. This one irritated me as well. Going back to the native culture thing, it was once an area owned by, it was sacred to the native people in that area, and it was actually a sacred place of healing. And it ended up getting purchased by a white Bigfoot hunter, entrepreneur, that's lovely, where he could use it to explore paranormal events and use it as a tourist attraction. And he is raking in the dough using it as a tourist trap, where they claim you can find stick glyphs. Stick glyphs are one thing they claim in the documentary, appears a lot there. And if you might think, wow, stick glyphs, that sounds like a fancy sort of thing. What's a stick glyph? Have you ever seen the Blair Witch Project? That's a stick glyph. Okay? Like I said, if they've seen it in a movie, played it in a game, or read it in a book, aliens and Bigfoot can just do it. It's fucking nonsense. Like, they have this thing, they're trying to say it's like a real paranormal hotspot. And one of their things they use to prove it is, like, they have, like, a slab of concrete, okay, and they tell one person, you stand on the left end and I'll stand on the right end. And they show the two people and they're like this. And they're like, all right, now switch spots. And they switch. And all of a sudden, whoa, my goodness, the short person is now the tall person. And so I saw that and immediately I was like, oh, okay, it's like a perspective thing. It's just an illusion. It's trickery. And they go, no, it's not trickery, man. You want to know how we can prove it? So they take like a marble and they put it on their little concrete slab and it doesn't move. So they're like, oh, there's no difference in elevation, because if there was, the marble would roll. Ooh. And I was like, oh, okay. So I looked it up, and it turns out that there are little platforms at the end. The middle of the slab is level. The ones at the ends are tilted. So it is a difference in elevation. They're lying. That's the difference. They're just liars. They love to bring up every single one of these documentaries. They love to bring up orbs, and they say that orbs are Bigfoots traveling around in their spirit forms. They want to film the orbs. They say, oh, well, you can't see them because they're not on the visual spectrum, and they only appear on camera. And then you look up why they appear on camera. Orbs are not real. It's dust. It's dust or water condensation, shit that appears naturally. That's all orbs are. You don't have to debunk orbs. They exist. They're just not spirits. It's dust. It's dust, and airflow changes. So that's another thing people love to say about orbs is like, oh, they move around in such erratic patterns. Like, how could it move around like that if it didn't have some sort of intelligence behind it? No, it's airflow and dust particles. Sorry. That's just the way it moves. One of my favorite moments happens. They're in this house, and they're talking about how Bigfoot likes to hang out in the area, and like you can see Bigfoot, and he'll just be like watching people as they're palling around. He's like, he just watches from afar, and a moth flies in, and they say, and I swear to God, they're like, oh, there he is. There's Bigfoot. A moth, a bug flies into the room, and they're like, there's Bigfoot, because he's a shapeshifter. It's well known. It's well known. The narrator says that Bigfoot is a shapeshifter, and clearly he heard them all talking about Bigfoot and wanted to drop in and say hello, so he shapeshifted into a moth and just flew into the room. Yeah, he just wanted to say hi, and they're like, oh yeah, this Bigfoot's doing. I tell you, they're real tricksters. I always know when they're being talked about, and they'll turn into bugs and just fly into the room. And they end by going to one final location, and it's called the Owl Moon Lab. And I fell in love with the name. I like the name Owl Moon Lab. Sounds like a cool place. Sounds like a craft brewery. I would buy beer from the Owl Moon Lab if they actually made it. And it's funny because it's just like a dude's garage, and they're talking. The guy that's bringing them there, the researcher that's bringing them to the Owl Moon Lab, is like, all right, so we've been, just so you guys know, Daryl and Cindy, we can only refer to them as Daryl and Cindy. Don't use their last names because they're trying to sell this house and we want the sale to be good. And it's like, listen, if perchance a potential buyer was watching this documentary and was like, wait a minute, aren't we trying to buy some property in Oregon from a couple named Daryl and Cindy? They claim that it's like haunted by Bigfoot ghosts. That's weird. I don't want to buy that house anymore. They claim all this like paranormal activity is in relation to Bigfoot. They put out some like letter blocks like for children, and they spell out thank you with the blocks, and then they come back later and it says welcome. And because Bigfoot did not have enough letters, he used a 3 for the E in welcome. Because he's just so smart, and he's such a trickster, such a jokester. And what they expect you to believe here is not just that Bigfoot ghosts are real, but it also wants you to believe that it has the ability to manipulate these physical objects. It understands the Hebrew alphabet, the Arabic number system, the English language, English slang to know that you can shorten "you are welcome" to just "welcome," and also the idea of using numbers as letters to spell it out if you don't have all of the letters available to you. And they just want you to accept that on face value, because what other explanation could there be other than direct lies? This movie wants to claim that the paranormal equals Bigfoot, Bigfoot equals aliens, therefore aliens equals paranormal, and you have a whole triangle of nonsense, and you have to believe all of it. And to close out the documentary, the narrator says that the government knows all of this, and I would just like to say to him, to the narrator, have you seen the government? Have you seen the government? They are not capable of anything, and you think they are capable of keeping this level of nonsense secret for 70 plus years? No, I don't believe that. And then his final words to all viewers are, open your mind. You'll believe all this stuff, you just open your mind and turn it off and throw it in the garbage disposal, apparently. And then it ends, and then that's it. And that is the worst documentary I have seen all year. And so there you have it. There's the alien Bigfoot connection revealed. The funny thing, here's the funny thing, okay? I did not have to do a lot of research for this vlog. I didn't have to do a lot of research to debunk this documentary. You don't have to. The only thing, I had to do some light Googling to figure out the specifics of the concrete slab in Montana. I had to Google that to find out that they had the platforms skewed on the ends, but it was level in the middle. I had to Google that to figure that out. Everything else is just knowledge I have, stories I've been told from others, and most of it is just common sense. That if you think about this stuff for like 15 seconds, you'll realize that they're contradicting themselves. They're saying one thing and the opposite and expecting you to believe both to be true. They're throwing everything against the wall and hoping that some of their nonsense sticks in your brain and you will join their movement and buy they're just trying to sell books and crappy t-shirts. It seems all of them are in that boat. They just want to sell merch or have a career where they just get to piss around in the woods for a few days and get paid and call it an expedition. Seems like that's all they want to do. And, I mean, this documentary is free on Netflix. Not on Netflix, on Amazon Prime. So, did it harm anything? No. I really get irritated by the native stuff, but outside of that, it's just a bunch of crazy people saying crazy things. They want their sci-fi to be real. And I mean, they want to sell books and merch. I want to sell books. One of my next books that's going to be coming out is about a cryptid, like has cryptids in it. I love using them. Cryptozoology is wonderful for fiction, but that is what it comes down to at the end of the day. Fiction. It's not real, okay? They're just stories, okay? Pass on your stories. If you want to tell kids stories of Bigfoot to scare them into, behaving, more fucking power to you. But quit trying to convince people that it's real. Because there's gullible idiots out there who could end up doing something or getting hurt and, just have a little bit of tact. Have a little bit of tact. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, sub to the channel. If you want to donate to my Patreon, I should put like a little goal up there, like some like far off distant goal. Like if we reach X number of dollars, I'll go to, I'll fly to New Mexico. I really would love to check out that Vortex with all the merch strewn about. I just want to go there. I think that would be fun AF. So maybe I'll put that up there as a goal. And if you want me to achieve that goal, donate to the Patreon. My Twitter and Insta are going to be linked in the description, as well as my books as well. I write stuff, guys. So until next time, I am Chris, and thank you for playing along.